Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends and frenemies, welcome to episode number 12 of the Simon Tefula Show. Real stories from real entrepreneurs. No half, no puff, no fluff. Today, I have my sister from another mother. It's been a while, but we're here. She has an amazing story to share. And I'd like to welcome Anne-Marie to the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you for having me.
Thank
Hi,
you
everybody.
You know what's really crazy, like I was telling you earlier, lots of people say, hey, we need to connect, we need to catch, we need to do this. And people don't actually turn up. Like, I'm so grateful that you've taken time out of your busy schedule.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
I really appreciate
I'm really
that.
grateful that I could be here.
Yeah, so, first of all, where did we meet? We met in a group called the Iron Circle, right?
Yes, we did.
Do you want to explain what that is? This is like more than 2 years ago, right?
Yes. It was the Iron Circle was a group whereby I suppose it was David Gogo who had the original idea to set up the group for young kind of startups, entrepreneurs, or even just motivated young people to get together, chat about business, chat about their goals and where they wanted to go. And so it was at one of those amazing events that myself and Simon met, got chatting, and then we went on to speak at another event, I think after that together.
I still have that video.
Yes, it was wonderful.
I have so much content, right?
That
was an amazing event. You know?
It was, and I think when you naturally have, I suppose, a similar mindset with someone like we do, as much as, you know, like time passes, like as much time has passed now, is a long time since we last met or spoke, but when you have that connection, you always end up, you know, meeting again or staying in the same realm.
Exactly, absolutely.
It's crazy. It's good though.
You know, there's some friends that you kind of get to know and build this friendship where even if time passes and you don't see each other for ages, you know, life happens. When you meet again, it's like no time has passed, like things are still the same.
100%.
And that's how it is, like, you know, so yeah, it's been a while, but like you have an incredible story, man. I just thought like I need to get, and you actually reached out and I'm like, yes, I don't have to, I don't have to go chasing people. But yeah, thank you so much. So obviously you have an amazing story. We're going to talk a bit more about that. So tell us, first of all, where were you born? Where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in Ireland, obviously, hence the accent. I was born in a little county called Cavan, in a town called Ballyjamestuff.
Okay.
So I grew up there, a country girl. I went to university in a place called Athlone in County Westmeath, which is in the centre of Ireland. Had a pretty normal childhood up until about the age of 18, and then we'll get to that, I'm sure, in my story. But then I left and moved to New York for a while.
Wow.
Big
up or big city?
Big up, big move. Travelled the whole of America, so the East Coast, South Coast and West Coast.
Wow.
Had an amazing time, as you do when you go travelling in a new country. It just opens up your mind and your eyes, everything. And then I moved back to Ireland. Was there for about 2 more years, I'd say. Actually moved back to the town that I was in university in, so into Athlone. And was there for about 2 years and then kind of made the decision that actually, you know, the world is a lot bigger. I had seen a bit of it living in New York, and I wasn't ready to like settle down in a little town, so I wanted to move again. So then I upped and moved to London, and I've been here about 6 years now, actually, maybe 7. Time is really flying.
I know, right? Time flies just like this, right? Especially when you live in a big city and everything is so fast, things just move really quickly. So obviously, when I first met you, one of the things that really struck me about you was the story of kind of where you've come from, but also what you currently do, right? So you're a life strategist, right?
Yes.
What is that? Explain, what is that?
So a life strategist, I would say, in the simplest terms, I would say that I have a series of strategies that I believe work effectively in anybody's life to help them create the life of their dreams. And it's simply just putting those strategies and actioning those strategies on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis that will get you to where you want to be. And I've seen it happen time and time and time again. I do think there's a lot to be said for, like we were speaking earlier, about having someone as a sounding board in your life, having someone to have kind of an objective point of view over your life. I just think it adds value. I myself have several coaches, a business coach, a marketing coach, a life coach, and each of them offers me a different perspective, a different view, and each of them has a different knowledge base as well, which is very beneficial, I believe.
Amazing. So, like, we've spoken about this before, obviously, and, there are those that say, there are too many life coaches, right? There are too many life strategists. Like, everyone is a life coach these days. Everyone is but like, and the thing is, people don't really understand this. And I've got to be honest, I just felt like, a lot of life coaches kind of just repeated the most cliche, recycled motivational quotes to kind of just get people excited in a moment, and that was that. But I then got a personal coach that I've been working with for some time now, and my perspective has completely changed. And the thing I always ask, so to those who say, right, there are too many life coaches, there are too many personal strategists, like, what would you say to them? What's your response to those sort of people in terms of this?
I suppose I would agree with them first and foremost, because I do believe it's a saturated market, 100%. Just as much as I think the personal training sector is a saturated market.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I do believe that there are huge benefits to have a personal trainer. I have one myself, so I know that I get a personal trainer, and I have one because it motivates me, and I get what I want to get done.
Yeah.
And if that person wasn't there, I wouldn't necessarily push myself as hard as I want to be pushed. And I don't need somebody else to push me. I can be quite motivated on my own and push myself harder, but it definitely helps me. So if I feel like something helps me, then I will have no problem paying for it and have no problem attending. And it gives me someone to be accountable to turn up for, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
what I would say to people who say that there are too many life coaches, I would first and foremost agree with them, but it's in context, right? Because I definitely think there's too many personal trainers, but in what way are you looking at it? Because there is 9 million people in the city of London. So for me, every person needs a life coach. Every person could do with a life strategist. It just gives you a bit of a sounding board, someone to reflect back your thoughts to, but also to push you forward and to give you a different perspective on your life. And what I do think is that, as much as, like I'm saying, there is a lot of life coaches around, but I think they're necessary, and I would challenge anybody. I'm not going to stand here and say that every life coach is amazing, because I have not worked with every life coach. I'm not going to say that every personal trainer is amazing, because I've not worked with every personal trainer. But what I know is that when I work with a personal trainer, if I like them, which I do with my own, I will stick working with them because they work for me and we work well together. So what I would say is, I wouldn't, throw something off the cuff just because I haven't tried it. I'd always say try something before you judge it, right? Otherwise, it's like judging a book by its cover. You can say, having a life coach is ridiculous. It's a waste of money, a waste of time, etc., etc. But really, if you haven't tried it, I just would encourage you to give it a go, like you have, Simon, and see what you think after that. I challenge anybody to come, have a free session with me for an hour. More than welcome. Come have a free session with me for an hour and tell me that you don't have a different perspective, or that you're not more motivated in one area of your life than the other. It's really about trying it out. That's
Absolutely.
what I think.
That is so true. I mean, the thing is, for me, like I said, I just used to think, a lot of personal life coaches were kind of just like, people just, repeating all these motivational quotes and then getting paid for them. And I realized that, if you think about it, we were speaking about this earlier, right? Like, every successful athlete at any level in the world, right, has a coach, right? Every athlete that has any level of success has a coach, right?
Yeah.
So why shouldn't we as individuals have coaches in our lives? Someone subjective, someone that's a sounding board that is going to kind of put things that's non-judgmental, that's confidential. And one of the challenges I had, especially as a man, as a black man, is that, you're taught to be the man and like to hold things in and sort of just kind of like, kind of just be a man about it, which is essentially called for keep your feelings within you, just like don't, like any sign of emotion is a sign of weakness, right? Yeah. So for me, this was a massive step. And I'm so grateful that I actually was able to do it. And it's paying off a lot more because now I have an objective voice that has no agenda really, and that's basically just helping me focus, clarity, and a sounding board that is just giving me that clarity, that objective focus. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I would really encourage anybody that has an idea, well, that basically just wants to change the trajectory of their life. You know, we're Feb now, right? We're 10% of the year's gone apparently.
Mm-hmm.
So we have, you know, if you're struggling to kind of keep up with those life goals and all that, you know, still, it's never too late, right?
No, never
So-
too late. I totally agree. And I have to say, in
Yeah.
regards on the quote front, I am a sucker for a good quote.
Quote, yeah.
Anybody who goes on my Instagram, my Facebook, my Twitter,
I love a good quote,
there's
yeah.
quotes everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, I do get where you're coming from. I like a quote isn't going to change your life.
Yeah.
A set of words put together or a sentence strung together is not going to change your life.
Mm-hmm.
If someone says when the going gets tough, you know, just get up and run. It's like those type of things can be motivating in the moment. I do
Yeah.
get people messaging me going, "Oh my God, I love your last post. And it really made my morning and it pushed me to actually get up and get out of the bed and go to the gym," or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But it's not going to change your life. One word is not going to change your life. I do think that they're a driver in the right direction. Sometimes, you know, you might see the right phrase or the right sentence, or you might just see an image even that you relate to, and it might motivate you to do something or face a fear.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's not going. That one thing is not going to change your whole life. You need to take proactive. You need to be proactive. You need to take action.
Yeah.
And just like what you were saying about, I suppose, being a man, and I really feel like it's the same being a woman. I have
of
both
course.
male and female clients, and I do think that in the society that we live in, I'm going to say it, and people don't often say it, people, you know, I do think it is good to be slightly a closed book at times, because you need to protect yourself. You need to protect your heart and your mind and your emotions. And if you're an open book with everybody that comes into your life, well, then you're entering dangerous territory, because you know, most of the people that I work with, you know, have amazing lives and are doing great. I'm so pleased to say. When I start working with someone, you know, we try and work on the area that they want to work on that, and then initial consultation, and then moving forward, it kind of gradually goes across every area in their life, and you see every area line up, which is amazing. But everybody, I've yet to meet one person in the world who hasn't been hurt in some way, shape or form, and that it's impossible kind of to mix or to miss. But if you are wise about who you trust and who you keep as your closest friends and, you know, your closest compadres or whatever, then you're a little less susceptible to being to having your hopes dashed. You want people on your side that are going to support you, right? You want your crew on board. You want people that are going to, when you say you can't do something, you want people that are going to say, yeah, you can do that.
Absolutely, yeah. Amazing. That's incredible. I mean, there's so many gems of so much you said. For me, one of the most fascinating things about you is your story of how you became a life strategist. Like, there's a series of events that lead up to this moment. And I really want you to share this. What's that story? Like, what happened, basically? Just tell us.
Well, like I said, I grew up in Ireland. I grew up in a little town called Ballyjimstuff. And at the age of 18, actually, I lost my brother. My brother was killed in a car accident. And for that, at 18, I was like a young, fun-loving, I think I'm still young and fun-loving, but I was a young, fun-loving teenager, kind of just coming out of my teenage years, really kind of growing into adulthood, and my whole world was amazing. You know, I just had the world at my feet. I loved every moment. You know, I loved partying, loved drinking, loved this whole scene that I thought was making me happy at the time. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that in moderation, but unfortunately my brother was killed in a car accident, and he was and still is, you know, because I'm quite a spiritual person, I do believe he still is, my best friend. And so when he was killed, it like literally pulled the rug from under my feet. And unfortunately, in quite close succession to that, I was in a relationship for 8 years, and it broke down. So basically, I'd lost my brother and my boyfriend at the time, and that sent me into a spiral of depression. It sent me into a spiral of anxiety, suffering from panic attacks, into like the spiral of drinking to try and be happy, of even, you know, at some stages, you know, I'm not, you know, proud to say it, and I'm not kind of ashamed to say it either. It probably pushed me towards the drug scene. And I just lost myself in the spiral of hopelessness, trying to fill this void that was in me that I couldn't get out of. And what actually happened was, I remember one stage, this was probably the pinnacle, the point where I went, I cannot do this anymore. I don't think I'm actually going to live if I keep doing this. I was definitely suicidal at times during that dark period. But this one time, I had been out kind of partying, drinking. I'd come back home. I was sobbing, really sobbing with this heartache of losing my brother, my relationship, everything. My whole life had just spiraled into this black hole. And I really didn't think I was going to get out of it. I really didn't think I was going to be happy again. If I could have fast forward the years to where I am now, I would have had a different perspective, but I didn't have that perspective. And I had a panic attack at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I literally couldn't breathe. Anybody who's had a panic attack or suffered from anxiety in their lives will know, when you're trying to get your body to breathe, but you're so overwhelmed by this feeling, it's like the most amount of fear that you've ever felt in your life hitting you at once. And I just couldn't get my breath. And I remember calling my sister on the phone, and she knew it was me because she had seen the caller ID, but I couldn't get a word out because I couldn't breathe. And when I did breathe, it was just like choking from crying. It was ridiculous. And I remember her talking to me on the phone. I'll never forget it. She was talking to me until I actually started to breathe. And I don't know how long. I mean, it couldn't have been that long, but it felt like a lifetime. And I think that was the pivotal moment where I went, I literally can't do this anymore. And so I decided that, going down the road of drink and partying and blah, 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 it wasn't doing anything for me. The only thing it seemed to do was drive me even more into the depths of sadness, etc. And I'd wake up with a hangover twice as sad. So I tried everything. I was trying to run, I was trying to go to the gym. Alongside this, I was even trying to go to church. It just didn't seem to be helping me. But I actually, for me personally, and I always say this is just for me personally, I believe everybody has their own journey, and I would never, try and say this is going to work for everybody. But for me personally, I read a book called The Shack, and for anybody who's read it, it's an amazing book. For anybody who hasn't, it's still an amazing book, and it's basically about a man's encounter with God in a shack, in a nutshell. And for me, what that did was it opened up my mind to I'd always had faith, I'd always believed in God, but my vision of God, I suppose, was skewed a lot. And what I realised from reading that book was that God loved me. And I had an amazing family, I have to say this, I had amazing friends, I had, amazing people around me. But during that time, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, it didn't cut it. It didn't seem to matter. I couldn't get that through to my head that that's what I had. And I was trying to be so grateful for it, just wasn't cutting it. So I had this epiphany from reading this book, and I found faith. And it literally, I don't know how to say it other than it cut the depression off my life, and it cut the anxiety out of my life. I've never suffered from a panic attack since. I've had a very minimal, I would say, anxiety since, and I've learned how to deal with that. And the depression has never come back since. Now, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say, there aren't days where we're all human beings where I feel down, or I don't like how I look, or blah blah blah. We're all like that. I'm not going to say no one's got a perfect life, but I know that was the pivotal moment where the depression, the anxiety, all of those horrible things were broken off my life, and it changed my life for the better. So I decided to start writing a blog, and I know this is quite long-winded, so I'm going to keep it going.
We have all the time in the world.
But I decided to start writing a blog, and the blog was, I prayed about it, I thought about it, I said, what will I call the blog? And I thought, well, I'll call it A Lighter Side to Life. Because I feel like this is the lighter side to my life, and this is where I want my life to stay, and this is where I think people are looking for the lighter side in their life, so it might relate and resonate with people. So I started to write the blog. I was writing about how I dealt with these little tiny feelings that would come back up once in a while, or moments where I thought I'd sink back into this. I wrote about how I overcome depression in the long run, because obviously you have that pivotal moment, but you still have to work at it. You have the pivotal moment with anxiety, but you still have to work at it. So I just documented that. I wrote about it. I wrote about grief, how I dealt with the grief of my brother, because I still had the heartache. So you still have the grief, the loss, and all the stages of grief to go through. So I blogged about that, blogged about my relationship breakdown and how I had been in a relationship from when I was 15 to when I was 22. So at that stage, you're as a young woman or a young man, and your life is with this other person pretty much the whole of your life. Till that point, you have to learn how to be by yourself and how, who you are and what you like, etc. So I blogged about that, and people started reaching out to me from all over the world. And it had 100,000 views, 200,000 views, and then 300,000 views. And I was like, wow, this is really, then people started reaching out to me, asking me questions about how they could deal with this scenario or this situation in their life, or wanting to speak to me on the phone. And I thought, wow, I'm not qualified to give you advice or to even, I suppose, support you in this, but I'll tell you what I think, and I'll tell you what worked for me if you think that would work. And in doing so, people just kept reaching out to me. So I did a life coaching course, and then A Lighter Side to Life was born.
Wow, what a story.
Yeah.
That's an incredible story. I mean, there's so many gems in there. Again, where do I start? How do we even unpack all of that? One of the key things you have mentioned in there, and that I know obviously, is the grief aspect, and that grief you experienced from breaking up with your ex-boyfriend, and also from losing your brother. In modern life, we have grief, right? It might not necessarily be from losing a brother or losing a relationship, but there's this thing, especially within millennials, of losing friends and losing friendships, where people say, I cut people off quick, or basically a relationship breaks down. Of course, I want to get your take on how do you deal with grief in the modern day world? That's not necessarily losing a brother or losing a sister. Or, how does someone, any tips on that? Because obviously you've been through it, and you've mentioned some solutions in there, but just pick up on that.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. And the one thing that I know is that even if you haven't been through, losing someone through death, and you haven't been through grief as such as they call grief, or even a long-term relationship breakdown, or even a relationship breakdown. For me, having been through a lot of grief in my life, in different scenarios, as well as those two main ones, I have come to know that grief in itself is always the same. It always feels the same. It's always heart-wrenching. It's always, heartbreaking. Whether it's just a friend deciding that they don't want to be your friend anymore, and that sounds so childish. Ghosting, it is, and it's heart-wrenching. I've gone through that with girlfriends, even got friends that were my girlfriends that I thought would die for me, and then all of a sudden, it's either it's a different thing, or they've decided whatever's going on in their life, that they don't want to spend time with you anymore. And as human instincts, we always go inwards. We always go, well, what did I do?
What did I do?
What is wrong with me?
Oh my God.
Why do you not want to spend time with me? It must be me. What I've really come to know, and I know my faith has really helped me in this, is that over the next, couple of years, as I was going through that grief, and I came out of that, and I did have friendships, and they did break down. I did go through grief, even if it's just over not getting the job that you want, or the place in the university that you want. You always, it's like disappointment can be grief, right? Yes. Because if you put your hopes and your dreams onto something or someone, and then it just ghosts you, it just disappears. Oh God. It's like you're suffering from grief, and it's all the same. And what I do know is that, like I said, faith has helped me. It's a really good time for reflection, but in the sense that you need to build yourself up, that you've got such love for yourself, not in a vain way. I'm not talking about vanity. I'm talking about caring about who you are, and really understanding yourself and starting to like yourself. Because the best thing is that if you can get, I'm just going to say, it's like having a strong backbone, right? So if you can get your backbone to where you want it to be, which takes time and it takes work. And sometimes it does take getting knocked back and getting grief to go, hang on a second, I need to mind myself here. I really need to mind myself.
Yeah.
What I would say is, talk about it. I'd say get a coach, get a counselor if you feel like you really need to.
Yeah.
But what I would say is use that time wisely. When someone has ghosted you, or you feel like you've missed a place in a university, or you've missed a job that you wanted to get, or whatever it is, use that time to go, hang on a second. If I wasn't so busy going, what did I do wrong? Or what's wrong with me? Or was I not good enough? If I wasn't so busy saying all those things, how could I turn it on its head into a positive? Mm-hmm. Could I say, hang on a second, maybe that wasn't for me.
Yeah.
If that's not for me, what could be for me?
Yeah.
If that person has their own issues to deal with and they need to go that way, well then I need to take care of myself. And what do I need to do to get me where I want to be? Amazing. And it's not about being vain or having a vanity about yourself. It's just about being proactive about you and where you want to be.
Amazing. Wow. Incredible. I mean, one of the other things I could add to that is, obviously, for my own personal experience, is that, you have friends, you go to uni, you have really close friends, and all of a sudden, like, they don't talk to you anymore. Or like just, breakdown of relationships really for me has been, the disappointment of not getting a job, or the frustrations that you get with just, normal day-to-day lives. Yeah. And the challenge with that is that, if you don't have practical tips on how to deal with it, it then mounts up and it just explodes, So I think it's always good to find a mechanism, to find tools and methods of kind of dealing with it, and to be aware of how to sort of have a way of kind of dealing with it before it kind of gets into that,
Yes,
but it's something I've struggled with, and a lot of men struggle, because as a man, like, if one of your homeboys stops speaking to you all of a sudden, and it's like, but it's not like, you're trying to date him or anything. It's a very awkward conversation to have, because men, a lot of men generally don't express their emotions as well and as openly as perhaps maybe women do. So, so it's something I've always wanted to ask life coaches about, how to deal with grief, because it's something I've had to sort of deal with it in my own personal life. So that's a really important issue.
When we were talking about how to deal with ghosting, or even just disappointment, which I feel like is kind of minimal grief. It's like minimal grief. It's still like a short spurt of grief almost. What I think the difference, and what I think is a really good tactic to use, or strategy even, as I say to my clients, is to have an expectancy in your life, to have expectancy of people to be amazing to you, to be good friends, to be, a nice family, to be loving, to be supportive, but not to be expectant. Okay. So the difference between being expectant and having expectations, whether that's in a relationship, any relationship, whether that's on a job or in a situation, is that you expect a certain thing. You expect a certain outcome. You expect your homeboy or whoever to be there all your life, all the time. Yeah. And when you place expectations on a living, real thing, and relationships are real, living things. Just like, a job, a moment before you get a job, or when you're going for an interview, it's like a real, living moment. When you place expectations on a live thing, it kills it. It makes it stagnant. It's not living anymore. You're putting an outcome, an end on it. But when you live in, and this is something I've learned over the years, when you live in expectancy, you never expect a certain outcome. You just have expectancy that great things are going to happen. But it doesn't really matter what those great things are. You have expectancy that you might be in this relationship, but this relationship is going to bring you joy for that moment, for that time, but you don't have expectations of how that's going to present itself, how long it's going to be, or what's going to happen out of that. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Wow, amazing. One of the other things I want to talk to you about was, so the society we live in today does not teach us as human beings about managing our own emotions, right? About how to, some of the tips you've just given are fantastic. Yeah. And, I'm a huge advocate for this sort of things being taught in schools to kids at a very young age. So we can learn how to deal with this, because if there's no one teaching us how to do this, right? Then it mounts up and then it leads to a massive explosion, and you don't want to get to that spot. And so one of the things I want to talk to you about is, I don't know if you've read the book by Professor Stevens, Peter Stevens, The Chimp Paradox.
I'm actually reading it now.
All right. Amazing, right?
Rereading it.
Exactly,
Perfect
right?
timing. We did not
We didn't
practice
plan
that.
that.
We didn't
Yes,
practice that.
Exactly. But, we get good people in the show. But yeah, so like when I read that book, it just completely changed my life, right? Because here's a professor in psychology that is teaching people on a practical level, right?
Yeah.
How to manage your emotions, right? And it's incredible because it's something that's not taught in society. And people talk about these skills as, soft skills. And these are not soft skills. These are vital survival human life skills.
Yeah.
And that gets on my nerves quite a lot. So tell me about this. I mean, what is your opinion in terms of, the society we live in? How can people incorporate teaching these emotional skills to their spouses, to their kids, to members of their family? Like, how do we encourage society? I mean, obviously, the first move is to get yourself a life coach.
Yeah.
And to move to the lighter side of life, right? But just generally people who are educators, who are parents, who are, how do we facilitate this? Because it's a massive collective effort, right?
Yeah.
How do we facilitate this emotional training?
Well, I would say, I'm a firm believer in monkey see, monkey do. So,
Okay.
we're talking about the chimp paradox, right? Monkey see, monkey do.
Actually, let's explain to those who do not know what the book is.
Yeah.
So can you just summarize it?
Of course. So it's basically based on the fact that as human beings, we've got a brain, and the brain kind of works out of three, if you'd agree with me, three areas.
Yeah.
One is the chimp, which is our human instincts, which can be related to eating, just human basics, staying alive, etc. Human basic instincts. The other one is the human part of the brain, which is learned behaviors, based on how you're raised, the culture you're raised in, etc. And then we both rely on the computer, which is your actual brain, which processes all this information. But dependent on what sector you're working from or what area, if you're working from the chimp, say if Simon said to me, I don't know, a certain thing, I could take instant offense to it and react in a harsh and angry way.
Absolutely, yeah.
And sometimes when you're in, I don't know, I was in the queue for a bank, in the bank the other day, and I was in the queue to lodge some money in, and I seen a gentleman getting irate with another gentleman in front of him because he had walked on his toe. And I was just still in shock that he was getting quite riled up and he was going to punch this guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, how is he so angry? It was a genuine mistake. The guy has apologized, but I could see it. It was so funny because I've been reading this book and I was going, and I've known it before, but it's so apparent. Well, I would say read books around it, get to know who you are and why we react the way we do. But this guy was reacting from his chimp. So he felt like he owned the space around him. That was his spot in the queue. This guy had come into his personal space and attacked him by stepping on his toe. And he was reacting straight away out of his chimp, right? Without going. Where the human would come into this is if you had said something to me or like the situation in the bank, then the human in me might go, well, Simon probably said that because he didn't realise it would offend me.
Absolutely.
Or maybe what I'm thinking, or the guy in the bank probably stepped on this gentleman's toe because he wasn't aware he was so close to him.
Exactly, yeah.
But it's about controlling, and this was what the book talks about as well. It's about controlling, to a degree, managing the chimp. Yeah, because you can't really control the chimp. That's the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
We have, as human beings, and I totally agree, as human beings, we've got instincts. We've got instincts too, and when I was doing my life coaching course, these things came to light as well. We've got instincts to stay alive. We've got instincts
F, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the fight, flee, freeze.
Yes, exactly. Fight or flight syndrome, which is where and I spoke about this on our previous podcast where we discussed actually. And that's where anxiety comes from as well. Is when you're in a situation, let's say in life, back let's say in history, human beings would be under constant threat. So they would never know when a wild animal was going to come out, a wild bear or a wild buffalo or a tiger or something was going to come out at them. So they'd always have to be on high alert. And then when something would happen that was, dangerous or might mean they were going to die or live, you had an instant choice to make. You either fought or you took flight.
Right.
So that's what you do. That's where anxiety comes from. When we get into a situation, let's say your boss comes at you, because obviously we don't have any, I hope that nobody has like live tigers coming at them nowadays, unless you're working in a zoo. But that live or wild tiger or bear could be your boss.
Yeah.
Right? Your boss could, I don't know, have slight anger issues and come at you on a Monday morning like a wild animal. And you then have a choice whether you fight or you run away. And you mightn't get up at your desk and run away, but you might decide to either argue your point of view or not.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to argue your point of view, that can then lead to learned behaviours, as in maybe you feel like you've done something wrong. Maybe he's correcting you on something that you've done wrong. And that could lead you to thinking, well, now you're always going to do things wrong. And every time that your boss comes out of his office on a Monday morning, he's going to have something bad to say to you because it's learned behaviour. Or it could lead you to think that when your boss comes out to give out to you, you could have the other reaction. You could fight him. And that could lead to learned behaviour as well. You feel like you have to fight your way in that position. So the one tip that I would give is, I totally agree with you. I do believe that these type of skills should be taught in schools. These type of skills should be taught in university. I think, statistically, we have the highest suicide rate on record.
Yes,
And it just grows. Every year, it just grows. I heard the other day, statistically, the sector with the highest suicide rate is the corporate sector, right? And it's because we are, in a nutshell, to a degree, we are wild animals. Well, we've got instincts. We're being housed into these, offices Monday to Friday. We're not being taught how to use or deal with our emotions. And we're being put into situations that bring these emotions to the head. As in, that could be a primitive emotion of like, this is my space, this is my desk, or this is my client. You can't encroach on my client. Let's put it into. So it's really the same, what would you say, situations that we dealt with primitively. We're dealing with them now, but in different scenarios. And we can still, and are still, if we don't learn about them, and you can do that through reading, you can do it on YouTube, you can do it by getting a coach. There's so many ways you can do it. What I'd say is, if you want to improve, let's say, your partner, your family, your friends, or the people around you, and how they respond to you and how they deal with their emotions, I'd get yourself right first. Because it's monkey see, monkey do. If you get yourself right, if they can see that it's learned behaviour, if they can see how you deal with situations, and they see a change in you, as in something that they said maybe a year or two ago would make you fly off the handle, and now all of a sudden there's a change and you know how to control your anger. And anger in itself isn't a bad thing. It's just how you control it or express it. Then it will trigger something in them to want to do the same. Because the one thing about this chimp within us, or these primitive instincts, is they can be controlled. They can be managed, and they can actually be really helpful and effective when they are managed. So I would just say, if you want to help your family or your friends or a partner or whatever get right and be able to control their emotions, I would say focus on yourself first.
Absolutely.
Get your emotions under control. And then they'll learn from you. That's
amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because, after reading that book, it completely changed my perspective on how to manage one's emotions. And that's the thing, like you said, because the chimp is this emotional kind of like, it's all based on instinct and it's just out there. You can't really stop it. You just have to learn how to manage it. And I think the key thing I got from that book was the recognition. If you can recognize what's going on, if you recognize this is my human
awareness.
part of the brain, awareness,
Yeah.
exactly. This is my human part, happening, right? This is my chimp happening. This is the computer happening. You can figure out ways of kind of like basically you will save yourself a lot of pain.
Yeah.
If you because you just there's this a scenario that has happened to me a number of times is that I'm in a workplace, for example. One of my co-workers, a lady, comes in and I'm like, hey, you look great today. And she's like, what do you mean? You mean I don't look great every day? And then I recognize that's her chimp.
Yeah.
But also, instead of getting my chimp to kick off and me having this back and forth, my human part, the logical, the reasonable part that is based on evidence, that makes decisions based on evidence and logic, will say, okay, I understand what's going on here. She's upset and then I have to kind of figure out how to manage that because I'm aware of what's going on, right? So I'd really encourage anyone to sort of, watch the videos, but get a copy of the Chimp Paradox. Professor Steve Peters, I believe. The Chimp Paradox, it's an incredible book.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really changed my life. And, these things, if you're not managed, if you don't learn how to deal with your emotions, it leads to a massive explosion. One of the things we spoke about when we were on the panel at the event we spoke about was the question we were asked was, how do you, because obviously you're a busy lady, you've got a business, and you also have a job that you do, and you do all these amazing things in the community. How do you kind of like take time to wind down? How do you wind down? How do you I think there are two parts to this question. How do you wind down? But also, how do you manage your stress levels? Life is stressful, right? How do you manage stress levels? What is your approach to self-care?
Yeah. I think it's a really good question, and I think it's like you said, so evident.
Yeah.
Especially when you live in a city, especially when you live in a city like London.
Tell me about it, yeah.
We're talking about how much time has gone by since we met or spoke last, because
exactly,
time
right?
just does this.
Yeah, exactly.
All the time.
Yeah.
It's definitely heightened in the city.
Yeah.
But I think what would be my key strategies for this? I would say designate times, and this is something I work with my clients on. So designate times to do things. I always advocate even dedicating time to be by yourself.
Yeah, that is so true.
Dedicate time to sit and do nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
And as crazy as that sounds, if you're a motivated or a busy person, that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to do. And it's not about sitting, for 4 hours in the evening watching TV. That's not doing nothing, and that's not taking care of yourself. That's just distracting yourself. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that in moderation, etc.
Yeah.
But if you're the type of person, like I know you are, Simon, and I feel like I am, where you just seem to have a diary that is packed,
Yeah.
then you need to make sure that you're also packing it with time for you, time for things that fill you up, time for things that help you switch off. So whether that's, they don't have to be expensive. You could, plan in your time to do a spa weekend. You could plan in your time to have a 20-minute walk, walk out in your lunch break, make sure that you get some fresh air and chill out and switch off and get away from your screen. Whether it's simply turning your phone on airplane mode for an evening once a week, whatever that is, my whole key strategy would be to designate time for it. And just like you designate time for exercising, for eating, for spending time with your family and your friends, designate time to spend by yourself. The one thing that I know is that the more that you do that, the more proactive you'll be and the more effective you'll be in the times where you're not resting. Because your brain has had time to switch off, just like, managing your chimp, managing your human. They will feel rewarded. They'll feel like you've given them a break. And then when you do switch back on and want them to work, they'll go, right, we're ready to go. We're bored. We're fed up. We're done sitting here meditating, praying, whatever it is that you do, we want to go. So my whole key strategy would be to designate time to it.
That is so important because it's fair, right? Valentine's Day is around the corner, right? I was talking to my boys about this, and one of the most interesting things is when you're there's some people in relationships just because they are scared and terrified of being on their own, right?
Yeah.
Which is insane. in order to be happy in a relationship, you have to be able to be happy by yourself.
100%.
You need to be able to enjoy your own company, being yourself by yourself.
Yeah.
And, I see a lot of people that are in relationship. Just because someone's in a relationship does not mean they're happy or in love.
Oh.
And just because somebody is single does not mean they're lonely and unhappy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the key thing is just finding time for yourself. We had a previous guest on here earlier, and she was saying that her time that she actually schedules into the diary is Netflix. Like, literally, Netflix and chill all by herself. She just switches off everything else and just that, and that makes her happy.
Yeah.
That makes her wind down. That makes her chill, because she's a startup entrepreneur. She has a really stressful job, and she has to schedule time for self-management and for stress management, and that is how she. Because entrepreneurship and creativity, it's like life in general is hard, right?
Yeah.
So you need to figure out. And again, this is one of the things we're never really taught
No.
in school or at uni, and this is one of the reasons I really started this show, which is, let's talk about our entrepreneurial journeys, but let's talk about our personal development and growth journeys as well. How do people kind of look after their self-care? What is their approach to mental health, especially creative and kind of like, entrepreneurial types, because this is something we don't really talk about, but it's almost like an open secret within the entrepreneurial world that a lot of entrepreneurs are at the edge.
Yeah.
And it's just very stressful.
Yeah.
And it looks really glamorous on the outside, and people, it looks trendy. People are like, oh, you're an entrepreneur, it's so cool. It's really hard.
Yeah.
So you have to have an approach to that. And I think that it's one of the things that is important to talk about. Now, the other thing I want to talk to you about is that I've been doing this thing over the past 8 months on my social media called Simon Says, which is, 1 minute of motivation, inspiration, and encouragement to get you through the week. And it's something I started to do because I felt like I was at a really low point in my life at one point. And I felt like I wasn't able to fulfill the potential I had to help as many people as I wanted. And I felt, okay, let me just do a video and just put it out there on Monday morning to encourage other people. And hopefully it can help, if it can just help one person, just cheer them up a little bit. Then, and I've been doing that for 8 months now. And what I find is that a lot of people, when I meet them in person, they're like, wow, like the videos you do. And like, I'm not trying to big myself, but it's...
No, I know.
Anyway, one of the things I always ask my guests is, what is your Simon Says moment? What is that 1 minute of motivation, inspiration, and encouragement? If someone was standing in front of you right now and they're a bit low, what would you say to them to hype them up? What is that one kind of go-to motivational piece of encouragement that you say to them?
I would say hang in there.
Okay.
I would say hang in there. Like things
Amazing.
Things can always get better.
Yeah.
We go through seasons in our life. Some seasons are worse than others. Some seasons are not so great.
Absolutely.
And like you said, everybody, social media, the media itself shows you all the shiny parts.
Exactly.
Shows you all the shiny, perfect images of life, of relationships, of love, of happiness, of the perfect family, the perfect life.
Yeah.
Let's be real. Let's be real. No one's life is like that.
I know.
24/7. No way.
I know, right?
No way.
Every perfect hair days.
No.
This is why I upload videos and photos of me looking like jacked up with my, afro all over the place, because I absolutely agree. So
I would say just hang in there. Like things can always, I would say hang in there, because you're probably just going through a season. You're always going through seasons. Time moves you forward, even if you don't want to move forward. Time, whether that's grief, whether it's anxiety, whether it's depression, time will move you forward. Things will always get better. And I would say to designate time for yourself as well. Just for your own mentality, for your own self-care. Invest in yourself. That is so key. Most people think, I can't spend the money on a coach or a counsellor, or I need to spend it on this or on this and this. Let me ask you this, if you don't spend the money on yourself, invest in yourself, where are you going to be this time next year, or this time in 10 years or 20 years? Is having a Michael Kors bag or the nicest car that you can drive really going to matter to you or give you the ultimate happiness if you're not happy inside and you haven't worked on the issues that you have? Would you rather be in a better place with the same clothes or in the same apartment or with the same car, or would you rather have that amazing stuff and still feel like where you are today?
Amazing. I mean, you brought up something about hanging. One of the things you said is hanging there, right? I had there's a show I watched and listened to, Steve Harvey, and he said something that really really struck me and has always remained with me. He said that, you know, deep down inside, you know, we all have the ability to hang in there.
Yeah.
Like it's inbuilt within us. It's part of our
Human
survival
instinct.
mechanism as human beings. And
and
he said, look, even if you're in the worst of worst situations, I mean, think about, like, you know, people that are homeless this time of the year, right? Like, it's a tragedy. But even someone that's homeless, right? They're still hanging in there.
Yeah.
They're on the street because they have, deep down inside somewhere, they have the ability to keep hanging on.
Yeah, they haven't given up.
Yeah, exactly. They're not in the right situation they want to be in. But because if they didn't have that ability to hang in there, they would have just ended it all.
Yeah.
They could just end it all there and then, right? But even if you're in the worst of worst places, like being homeless during a cold winter, like, you still have it in you. So one of my favorite quotes is, you will never really know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have. And it's one of those things where, like, of course you don't want to get into that situation where but really, like, you do have the ability to, like, hang in there, and you just have to remember, like, just hang in there. Eventually the season will pass and something else, you know, life is peaks and troughs, right?
Yeah.
It's that little beeper that you see in the hospital thingy, right?
Yeah.
Like, if it's not going up and down, then you're not alive.
Yeah.
If it goes,
not life. Yeah. No one's life is like that.
Exactly. If once it goes still, then that's it. I mean, the other thing you obviously touched on earlier was one of the questions I was asked is, what is the one book that's impacted you the most?
Yeah.
And I think you spoke about The Shack.
Yeah, The Shack. I would say The Shack.
Just summarize it.
Closely followed, by, I suppose, by the Jim
Who
Harris.
wrote the book? By?
William P. Morris wrote it, as far as I'm aware. That's the correct author, and he it's basically just about an encounter, this gentleman's encounter with God, essentially. And whether you believe in God or not, I think that, or whatever your faith base is, or even if you don't have faith, the basis of the book is really good, and it's just a really good learning curve to have in your life. It presents a lot of thoughts and ideas that I know I had as a young lady, and that people have in everyday life.
Amazing. So, Anne-Marie, tell me, who is the one person or group of people that have motivated you, encouraged you, or inspired you the most in your life today?
I would say, I suppose growing up, I would say my brother really inspired me. Okay. He was quite an ambitious, selfless guy, and he always, the one thing that I took from him was that he always lived in the moment, for the moment, and to his detriment sometimes, I suppose. You know, he was a young guy, but he just always lived in the moment, for the moment, and I think that's really key in people's lives today. They say that when we live in the past, it causes us regret, stress, and anxiety, and when we live in the future, it causes us stress and anxiety. So we're either busy being worried about the past, regretting it and wishing we could relive it or redo it, or we're busy living in the future, concerned about what might happen, what mightn't happen, how we're going to do in that pitch on Monday, how we're going to do in that client event. Whereas when you live in the now, it really opens you up to experiencing where you actually are with who you're actually with.
Amazing, yeah.
Right.
That's so true. I mean, one of the things about that as well is that because of social media, because of phones these days, like literally, you go to an event or you're attending, you're having a beautiful dinner, and like people have their phones out. And it's like, you need to learn to live in the moment. Like, it's great to document stuff, but like, you know, sometimes you just have to put the phone away and just like take that experiencing that you're having in real life. And that is a really good point about living in the moment. So I want you to tell us about, you know, your company, A Lighter Side to Life. What is it? What do you exactly do? And how can you help people out there? What kind of services do you provide?
So I suppose, like I said in the beginning, I'm a life strategist, and the reason why I call myself a life strategist is
not a life coach.
Not a life coach, not another life coach. Nothing wrong with life coaches. I've been an advocate for them. You know, I've had them in the past, etc. And have marketing coaches, business coaches now. But I suppose what separates me is that I have done research. Like I said, I've been on this path for years, for almost 10 years now, and over the course of that 10 years, I've realized that there are just certain strategies, the strategies for everything that work for everyone, no matter where they are or what they're going through. There are strategies that work for you, that will get you over what you're going through, that will get you into the next phase of your life, that will get you to where you want to be, happiness level, business level, whatever it is. And what I do is I work with people, regardless of whether that's one-on-one or working with a business or a team. I go in and meet the individuals, because you know what gets lost in today's society sometimes is, you know, that one thing is going to work for everybody, or it's like one for all, and that doesn't work. You know, we each have had a different upbringing, we each have gone through different situations in our life, which means that we have different perceptions, paradigms, you know, whatever they are, we have a different outlook, and that needs to be taken into account. And it's not like all airy-fairy, or you know, like you need to have a positive outlook on everything. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying that your life makes you a different person to the person you're beside, regardless if Simon and me went through the same situations in our life and had exactly the same upbringing, went through exactly the same scenarios, we would still have a different outlook, because we're different people, and we would experience that experience from a different light or in a different way. So I work with individuals on a one-on-one basis. I invite anybody who's watching this and feels like, you know, they want to take control of their life in any area, or even just want to up your game in whatever area in your life that you're considering working on, to contact me. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it, A Lighter Side to Life. Drop me an email, and what I usually do is I'll have a free consultation with you or with whoever, or with the business or your team. Usually if it's a team or a business situation, I go in, I do one-on-one interviews with everybody involved, because like I said, no two people are the same. So as a team, collectively, you might have the same way of thinking, or you might be driving for the one focus or the one goal, but you're going to think about it differently, and it's about getting everybody on the one page, but from where they are, right? So I work with people one-on-one in teams and businesses to focus on whether it's collectively on a thing that they're focused on, or a business, or if it's a person in their life, on one area of their life that they're focused on, or across other areas. What tends to happen over the years, and you'll know this yourself, is when you start to work on one area with a life coach or what life strategist or whatever, or a personal trainer, you will notice that when you get to where you want to be in that area, or when you get organized in that area and you start being proactive in taking action, because that's the key, is to take action, that every other area starts to level up as well. So it's just about being, you know, stop waiting for tomorrow, stop waiting for next year to sort your life out, stop waiting for the next 10 years, stop waiting for you to change job or to finish university or to, you know, move house or whatever you're waiting for. Just do it now. If you feel like you want to change in your life, you need to take action, whether that's contacting me after this, or whether it's contacting a coach, or whether it's contacting a personal trainer, whatever it is. It's about you taking that first step.
Amazing. That's it. A journey of 1,000 steps begins with one step.
Yes.
That step.
Yeah.
Amazing. Wow, incredible. One of the things I always ask people on this show is, what's that one piece of tech or gadget that you can't live without, that you have to have on you? It can be tech or electrical or physical. Like, what is it that?
I would say my headphones.
Okay.
I don't know if that counts, but I would say my headphones, because I love music. I do think that music is good for the soul, it's good for the brain, it's good for your mind, it's good. I think it's good depending on, you know, it's depending on the person and what type of music you like. But I just believe that it's powerful beyond what people actually know. It's really powerful. It can lift you up, it can motivate you, it speaks to your soul. So I would say my headphones.
Anne-Marie, you've been a fantastic guest. Thank you so much. So privileged to have you in the show.
Thank you for having me.
And we look forward to catching up again. And you're always welcome back on the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.